Hello, whoever you are, wherever you are. I'm in snowy central New York right now. Not much to do. Sunday afternoon. I've had some things on my mind. Just stuff to share with whoever listens. Got a lot of time to myself lately, and a lot of thoughts and prayers and such. And that's life when you get older. I found actually it's been that way off and on throughout my life. But I've been thinking a lot about romantic love between men and women, looking back at my life and other things in the Bible and God's, and which I believe is all part of God's creation. And men and women did not invent any of it. It's God's creation, His ideas. Men and women, work within that creation. And of course, a lot of it's fallen, misinterpreted, and such. So, lessons learned. I was going to do some videos on how to survive a heartbreak, a broken heart. I've definitely had a lot of experience in that throughout my life. I thought I'd put that together, but before I do that, because I'm still ruminating on that, I just don't spontaneously post things. I just wanted to spend some time and talk about Saint Valentine, because that was a little over a week ago from me making this video right now. And I think he's been grossly misrepresented today, and actually it's nothing new. And honestly, the history of him within the church is kind of not well known. It's kind of shadowy. I mean, this took place, he was martyred in 270 AD. Some of it is recorded, but some of it has been romanticized, and there are a couple Valentines that were martyred. So I'll read to you what I've got. Different things. First, he was born around the year 225 AD in a place called Terni, Italy. That was in the Roman Empire. And here's a map of Terni, Italy, or Italia. And you can see it's right above Rome, kind of central Italy. And that's where he was martyred. And I'll talk about that because it's a little more gruesome than I thought what happened to him. And it's where his friends had gathered his body and buried him in Terni. And they erected a shrine over his grave, which later was built into this basilica, which here's pictures of that, which is built over where he was buried. And over the years, it has become, they've added to it to what it is today. And everybody knows he's a patron saint of lovers, but honestly, I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think it's more honest to say he was a patron saint of holy matrimony between a man and a woman, specifically. An eligible bride and husband, as in they are unmarried, and if they're divorced under what's considered legal terms. As far as I can tell, the only one Christ set down, there's two ways you become free, and that's one is your spouse dies, and one is your spouse is unfaithful, adultery. So he married men and women when it was against the law, because the current emperor was more interested in having good soldiers for the Roman Empire, and he felt that married men did not make good soldiers. Going to give him there's two accounts I read. One, he didn't want people marrying Christian marriages between men and women, because he wanted his soldiers to be married to the Roman army. And I think when you enlisted, you were in for like 25 years or something like that. Pretty long time. So join the army, don't get married. That's what his idea. Or some say that he felt that a good soldier was not a married man, because when he's out in the field, away on campaign, his interest would be divided between thoughts of his wife and his family and his duties as a soldier. Which honestly, 20 years in the infantry and armor, there's some validity to that. There definitely is. But either way, it was illegal during St. Valentine's time to marry men and women. It was an official edict, a law at that time. He was martyred around age 42 or 43 in the year 270 AD. And I'll read to you about his life briefly and about his death. St. Valentine, or in Italian, San Valentino. I know Valentino because I had a college professor with that for a last name, and he told us in Italian you would pronounce my last name Valentino, and we all got a laugh about that. We were all going Valentino behind his back when we weren't in class. He was a good guy. In Latin, he was known as Valentinus or Valentinus. That's what he was known as, but we call him St. Valentine. He was a 3rd century Roman saint commemorated in Western Christianity on February 14th and in Eastern Orthodoxy on July 6th. From the High Middle Ages, his feast has been associated with a tradition of courtly love since the High Middle Ages. Hey Google, when was the period the High Middle Ages? Oh, it's not going to tell me. At any rate, in the High Middle Ages, and I'll put it up here when I look it up. So we just celebrated Valentine's Day about a week and a half ago from the time of making this video. And I didn't celebrate it because my Valentine is in heaven with St. Valentine and a lot of other good people and Jesus. So I didn't celebrate it this year. Here's something I didn't know. St. Valentine's he's a patron saint of Tournai, which is where he was from and where he was martyred and buried. But he's also the patron saint of epilepsy and of beekeepers. Now, I looked into these. Nobody's quite sure why he's the patron saint of epilepsy, other than they figure people went to him to have epileptics healed and prayed for. But nobody's quite sure. Now, beekeeping, there's a lot of records that say that he was big into beekeeping. During Valentine's time and place in Italy, beekeeping was like a major industry. It was practiced a lot. And St. Valentine was really big into beekeeping and honey. And he also incorporated beekeeping and honey into his practices in different ways. Some say he tried to do healings with honey and bees. But there's a lot written on St. Valentine and beekeeping. You can study up on that if you want, but he was associated with that during his life, very much so. So he's a patron saint of beekeepers, which I think is cool. One of those to-do things I've always had, I'd like to try if I ever had land or the resources. I think it would be cool. St. Valentine was a clergyman. He was either a priest or a bishop in the Roman Empire, and he ministered to persecuted Christians, and there were quite a few of those. I did a little research into that. Christianity was not legal in Rome till 370 AD, and even then, it depended. You had to belong to the right group of Christians. If you were in the wrong group of Christians, you were considered a heretical cult. This is what I got from the web. In the year 380, the Emperor Theodosius issued the Edict of Thessalonica, which made Christianity, specifically the Nicene, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, specifically the Nicene Christianity, the official religion of the Roman Empire. Most other Christian sects, S-E-C-T-S, sects, most other Christian sects were deemed heretical, and they lost their legal status, and they had their properties confiscated by the Roman state. So Valentine was martyred 110 years before this. And during Valentine's Day, from Christ's crucifixion up till 380 AD, depended upon where you were at in the Roman Empire and who was the governor of where you were at. Because it was illegal to be a Christian, more or less so. It was kind of a shady era in law, interpreted different ways. It depends upon who was in charge. And a lot of governors said they would shed no blood of Christians, and a lot of them were pretty lenient towards Christians, and some of them put Christians to death. So, depending upon the time and place in the Roman Empire where you were at, if you were a Christian, it was interpreted different ways. Now, I'm going to read a little, before I get to the point I want to make. Actually, there's a point I want to make on all this. But I always like to give a little historical context, in the whole thing. Because I just don't want to be up here just spewing thoughts, if I can help it, on things historical or biblical. This would be historical as it relates to the Christian family and the Christian church. A common hagiography, right? I had to look that up. What is a hagiography? It's kind of like a biography of somebody made in kind of a very flattering way of their life. And a lot of saints had hagiographies written about them. All right, you can pause and read this definition of what a hagiography is if you like. Pause here and read it if that's what you'd like to do. Otherwise, here I am again. But a common hagiography describes St. Valentine as a priest of Rome or as the former bishop of Terni, an important town in Umbria in central Italy. While under house arrest of Judge Asterius and discussing his faith with him, Valentinus, the Latin version of the name Valentine, was discussing the validity of Jesus while he was under house arrest of Judge Asterius. The judge put Valentinus to the test and brought him the judge's adopted blind daughter. If Valentinus succeeded in restoring the girl's sight, Asterius would do whatever he asked. Valentinus, praying to God, laid his hands on her eyes, and the child's vision was restored. Immediately humbled, the judge asked Valentinus what he should do. Valentinus replied that all of the idols around the judge's house should be broken, and that the judge should fast for 3 days and then undergo the Christian sacrament of baptism. The judge obeyed, and as a result of his fasting and prayer, he freed all the Christian inmates under his authority. The judge, his family, and his 44-member household of adult family members and servants were all baptized. Okay, finishing up on this, his history. Valentinus, or Valentine, was later arrested again for continuing to evangelize. See, he just didn't marry people against the edict of Rome. He preached the word of Christ. He tried to bring people to Christ, risking his life. He was sent to the prefect of Rome because he was arrested again. This time he was sent to the prefect of Rome, to the Emperor Claudius Gothicus, or Claudius II himself. So this time he was brought to Claudius II, the Emperor of Rome at the time. And I looked this up, and most sources agree with this. Claudius took a liking to him until Valentinus tried to convince Claudius to embrace Christianity. And other sources say the same, that he took a liking to Claudius. The emperor took a liking to Valentinus, but St. Valentinus, or Valentine, was trying to win him over to Christianity. All right, a little edit here because I messed up the wording in that reading. Valentinus refused to renounce his faith in Christ, so Claudius II condemned Valentinus, or Saint Valentine, to death, commanding that Valentinus either renounce his faith or he would be beaten with clubs and beheaded. Valentinus refused, and he was executed outside the Flaminian Gate on February 14th, year 269 AD, and some sources have it 270. He was in his early 40s, 41, 42 years old. And he as a martyr, gave up his life for Christ. He refused to renounce. And just yesterday, I made a video about 70 Christians in Africa that were killed on February 20th, 2025, for being Christians by Islamic extremists. And they too were beheaded in their church in a town in Congo, martyred. An embellishment to this account states that before his execution, St. Valentine wrote a note to Asturias, his daughter, signed "From your Valentine," which is said to have inspired today's romantic missives. Asturias' daughter, presumably the one that he restored her eyesight, and before Valentine was put to death, he wrote a note to her, and he signed it "From your Valentine." So that's the story of Saint Valentine that we know to be the patron saint of lovers today. And he was definitely, this is what gets me a little chapped. Some say he was put to death on February 14th, on or about the year 270. Let me backstep here a little bit. He was beaten to death with clubs. Beaten to death with clubs. Can you imagine how brutal that would be? And these are guys that definitely aren't Christians, and they definitely are trying to be nice to you because they're supposed to beat you to death with clubs. And then they beheaded him before he was dead or afterwards, I don't know. But he died a very brutal death for trying to pass the word of God on to convert the emperor, Claudius II. There are some people, there's a lot about this. Like February 14th, some people say used to be the Roman pagan fertility rituals were carried out then. So there's a lot of gray area ambiguity about the date February 14th. But given what we have, the man was martyred for not being the patron saint of fornication, which I want to bring you to. Just type in Valentine's Day and did a Google search, and here's what I come up with. Images, and you hear Valentine's Day, and this is what you think, and they turn it into all kinds of things, usually about romantic love and sex, and romantic love, and some turn it into other things, given the human condition. But he laid his life down for Jesus Christ, and he married people under holy matrimony, Christian office of marriage, oaths taken to God to stay married. That's Jesus charged people to do as well, giving the only excuse for people to marry again to be your spouse died or they were committing adultery. That's in the Bible, whether you like it or not. I'm not saying you don't, sorry, but a lot of people don't understand that. Even Christians know that Christ himself was very upset about divorce. Given just your spouse dies, if your spouse dies, you're free to remarry if you want to. If your spouse is unfaithful, physically unfaithful, not just, well, we fell out of love, we've been together so long. No, physically unfaithful, adultery. Then you're free to get a divorce and remarry. We're looking at that yourself. My point is, Valentine was martyred because he was trying to convert the Emperor Claudius II. I'm mispronouncing things. Let me get it right. I don't want to put out the wrong stuff here. I know I'm mispronouncing a lot of these Roman names. The prefect of Rome. Yes, Claudius. I had it right. He was martyred under Claudius Gothicus, Claudius II. And that's why Valentine lost his life. Not specifically for marrying people, but for trying to convert the emperor. He was arrested, brought to Rome, and the Roman emperor liked him, but he didn't like the fact that not only did Valentine refuse to renounce his faith in Christ, he went further than that. He was trying to convert, he was talking to the emperor, trying to convert him, trying to convert the emperor. So I had a tooth pulled 2 days ago, and I'm a little fumbling over words a bit. That and sinus problems. That's why Valentine was martyred. He was martyred for Jesus Christ. And, you know, the fact that he got in trouble for marrying people is kind of a side note. He was specifically martyred for trying to convert people to the faith of Christianity, for sharing the testimony of Jesus Christ with the very ones that were arresting him. And he was 41 and 42. But he suffered a very brutal death, willfully. And my point is that Valentine's Day, he's remembered for really the wrong things. Like again, Valentine's Day, it's all chocolates, hearts, flowers, romance, love, sex. Not about marriage or Christ at all. There's nothing wrong with if you're married or engaged or whatever. I'm not trying to be a killjoy on romance, not at all. But I've seen it really perverted in ways. And the man offered himself up to be beaten to death with clubs at a fairly young age, 41, 42, and beheaded for Jesus Christ's sake, for the sake of doing the work of Christ. Not the sake of encouraging people to fornicate. He would encourage people to marry under God, Christian marriage, which is godly. You get what I'm saying? It's been perverted for money, for secular reasons. It's been twisted, just like Christmas and Easter have been twisted for secular reasons, which upsets me, especially like this case when the man lost his life for the cause of passing on the word of Christ to those who needed to hear it the most. And he probably figured if he could convert the Roman emperor at the time, Claudius II, then he could stop the persecution of Christians. I'm sure he was thinking along those lines. He gave his life for the cause, for that cause. All right, I've been editing this video and decided to cut it short there. I think I've said everything I need to say on this topic. So thank you very much, and God bless each of you.